Okay, we continue.
Thank you. Hello.
Our next presenter is Deepak, and this is his first presentation at DecisionCAMP. And Deepak is running a company developing a judgment capital management infrastructure for institutional decision makers. Deepak posted very interesting considerations about decision memory, about why decision was made, not only explain how, but what was the incentives for decisions. And he is going to share his approach today and tell us more about work. And please introduce yourself in more details, Deepak. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jacob, for organizing this and giving us a chance to present. My name is Deepak Jha. I am joined by my colleague. I'm based in Silicon Valley. My colleague and our CTO, Gunjan, is based out of India. Hopefully, Gunjan is also on the call now. And the two of us will be presenting. I will take the first 10 minutes to set up the discussion about what is judgment capital management and what are we doing. And then Gunjan will take you through a mock-up of our product. Regarding my background, I have been in sales and pre-sales for almost 30 years now. Prior to starting Quantum Mosaic, which we are going to talk today, I was in another company of my own. It was a services company. And prior to that, I worked in companies like Accenture, Oracle, General Electric, Tata. So I have been living and breathing technology for quite some time now. And what I have realized is most of the organizations are good about decision making. They know what the decision was, but the reason behind consequential decision gets lost. We don't do a good job of capturing the reason why important decisions are made. And that is the topic of my presentation today. As most of us work in organizations where committees are making consequential decisions, I can assure you that the minutes of the meeting are recorded, the vote is recorded, but the reasoning behind the decision making is lost. Many of you today in this presentation are also part of corporations where this could be a problem. And with the advent of AI in decision making, this is becoming more and more common. Every institution records what it decided, but not necessarily why. And what it leads to is what I call reconstruction tax, meaning 6 months later or a year later, some inquiry comes, somebody is interested in finding out why did we decide something that we decided. Nobody has the truth. And people go to emails, people go to PowerPoint presentations, minutes of the meetings, and they are able to use some of their own memory as a recollection of what happened. We want to transform this. We want it to be as easy to find out the reason behind important decisions as querying a database, an ERP or a CRM. So that is what our product is. We are different from decision intelligence in the sense that in our product, we are taking notes and making annotations in the database as the conversation is going on, as the decision making is going on. It is our understanding that decision intelligence is largely about analytics on what happened, whereas judgment capital management, the phrase I'm going to use for this new category that we are creating, is mostly about capturing what was known contemporaneously as the decision was being made. So we capture the reason as the decision is happening without consideration for the final outcome. because otherwise it becomes post hoc, otherwise it becomes recollection from memory, reconstruction from memory. We want to avoid that. We simply want to capture the decision as it was happening contemporaneously. And this new field is what we are calling as JCM, Judgment Capital Management. Just like we have ERP to manage finance data, we have CRM to manage customer data, customer relationship data. We think we need judgment capital management to manage contemporaneous reasons for decision making. Let me go through my presentation of about 10 minutes and then I will open it up for questions. We are already halfway through my presentation, so thank you for holding on to your question. I'm not monitoring the online chat, so please bear with me. I want to recognize that this product is not about AI. Decision making is an old art and science that has been with us ever since civilization. Post-industrial revolution, we have always had something called institutional knowledge and institutional gap, meaning human to human knowledge transfer, human to human context transfer has been suffering because if somebody leaves an organization, then they take a piece of the institutional knowledge with them. We want to close that gap also, where we are able to store all the reasons behind consequential decisions in a ledger. And if somebody moves on, we are able to query that ledger, the judgment capital management ledger, to get you the information that you need for business continuity. If somebody leaves an organization, our hope is we will able to help you continue with business as usual because we will fill the gap. Our product will give you the missing information. Now, with more and more AI augmented decision making, we have the same promise that even if humans are delegating more and more execution to machines, more and more execution to AI, the responsibility and accountability will still remain with human. And the way we do that is machine to human. Just like we are doing human to human, we are doing machine to human. This time, the difference is the human will be accountable and responsible for the decision that AI is making. We will ratify the judgment and agree or disagree with AI decision making. So when I say we capture the reason behind decision making, what are the things that you are not capturing today? So on the left-hand side, I'm showing you what are the things that you capture. And on the right-hand side, I'm showing you the gap. Even if you're capturing everything on the left-hand side from board minutes to policy to workflow to transcripts to meeting logs, you are still not able to necessarily answer what were the ranked assumptions that you considered before approval. Were there any dissenting views in your decision making? If there were dissenting views, why did you override them? What were the trade-offs that were evaluated? So these are the few things that are the gap which is necessitating the rise of a product like Quantum Mosaic and the rise of this new field called judgment capital management. So the 8 fields that we are capturing contemporaneously are associated with decision outcome, decision context, ranked assumptions, alternatives, dissent or dissenting views, accountability. When should this decision be revisited? So the revisit trigger, and why were the alternatives overridden? So these are the kind of fields that we are going to capture in this new ledger called JCM, Judgment Capital Management. In order for us to make JCM operational, we also have few other constructs which are called playbooks, gates, decision commits, and judgment ledger. Playbook is nothing but like a rules engine, which are the rules of the engagement. If there is a workflow, then how is it done? Who all are involved? What is the sequence of event? Gates are the logic, more like a if then else, where a decision is to be made. And decision commit is the whole architecture of 8 fields that I was showing you. And a collection of different decision commits would lead to a judgment ledger. And by using this construct, we are able to capture your decision making in real time. We have one paying customer that we are just about to lose. And why we are losing this customer, even when the paid pilot was hugely successful, is because we realized that we were selling to the wrong buyer. The product works as good as it was designed to be. But as you know, there is a agency problem in many organizations where there is a principal and then there is an agent. The principal, for example, could be a private equity general partner, and the agent could be the CEO of a portfolio company. And the CEO of the portfolio company, being the agent, feels that if he or she has to record the reason for decision making, then there is a big brother, the principal, who's looking over the shoulder and second guessing everything, and it becomes more like a surveillance. And in our use case, the agent or the operator recognized this very well, and he did not allow the sales to continue, which has taught us that when we are selling the product, we should always be selling it to the principal and not to the agent, meaning to the owner and operator of a business, not necessarily an agent or a hired gun. So that's the learning. And now we are looking for net new clients where we are explaining to them that there is no such big brother surveillance going on, but still we are trying to avoid selling to the operator or selling to the agent, primarily selling to the principal. And in many situations, the principal and the agent can also be same, meaning the person whose behavior is being recorded, the person whose decision is being recorded, happens to be the same person who's responsible for the decision. So my question to the group is, in your day-to-day judgment making, decision making, in various projects that you lead, in various innovations that you lead, in various company transformation that you lead, are you able to produce the reasoning for any decision that was made in the past? Or will you be building it under time pressure when the people responsible for decision may have moved on? So that's the part of my canned presentation. I'm happy to open it up and take questions.
Yeah, sure, Deepak. It's Alan Fish here. It's an interesting ideas you're presenting, but it seems to me that human decision making is one of the most time pressured activities that a company engages in, especially if they're dealing with real customers. It seems to me that documenting those 8 fields that you talk about is going to be a time-consuming business. So how do you intend to make this feasible within the time limits that most people have?
Very fair question, Alan. I should have acknowledged that there is a pecking order where we will save this for consequential decisions, where time pressure is still there, but chances are these decisions are being made over 3, 5, 10 meetings of high pressured executives who are making consequential decisions. And we will be tracking such decisions through what we have here, like a listening agent or a recording agent or a notes-taking agent, which will be making sense of our discussion and our conversation. And in the natural course, teasing out the documentation aspect that we are talking about. What were the options considered? What were the dissenting views? Should we revisit this discussion? These are all organically being discussed as part of your decision making. But because of AI and sophisticated agents who are trained to do the work that we are envisioning to do, a lot of it will happen automatically. But you as a human being, you as a moderator of the meeting, you as a chairperson of the meeting will have to, in the end, ratify the decision. Meaning AI will make mistakes, AI can make mistakes. So Alan, we always recommend that just like anything else, you have an approval. At the end of the meeting, spend 5 minutes, 2 minutes approving and sealing those records and those decisions. So that is our mechanism, Alan, that we have thus far thought of and implemented for this customer.
Okay, thank you.
Trevor Miles here. Thank you very much, Deepak. My question is, how do you ascribe consequence or outcome to the action? Because often there's a delay. Often there are multiple competing actions that are taken. So how do you know what the outcome was?
That's a very fair question, Trevor, and it is our hope that once we have 6 to 9 months of data captured in this kind of a system, we will close another milestone, another gap in decision making where we can attribute the outcome or the consequence of a decision to the reason for the decision. Right now, we don't have that feedback loop where we can take any number of actions, but we are not able to quantify it. In our mechanism, because this will become more like a AI ML based feedback loop, we should be able to monitor, observe, and attribute the outcomes to the decisions. And it will not happen right away. It will happen over a period of time. We have to build that corpus. And to your point, Trevor, a side benefit of this kind of a thinking, a byproduct of this kind of a thinking is I would be in a position to tease out your intellectual property, your IP, your secret sauce of your business, how you run the business, and let more and more decision be made through this corpus of data, this learning that my machine is doing. So while I still don't have all the answers baked to your questions, it is our hope that with AI ML kind of model and feedback loop, we will be able to start attributing the outcome of decision to the reasons that the decisions were made, or to the, if there were 8 different options we could take, we took one option and how it fared.
Okay. Thank you, Deepak.
Yeah. Yes, Paul, please go ahead.
Thank you, Deepak. Yeah, this is very thought-provoking. I was going to just clarify what you're talking about is organizations making decisions on some sort of maybe operational decisions, but they are making instance decisions as opposed to deciding what a decision should be in future, or a decision pattern, which is the sort of thing you program in a decision engine or a rule engine. So we're talking about the sorts of decisions that are made, per your example, at the C level. Do they buy this product? Do they employ this systems integrator? Do they go down this marketing route, et cetera, and that sort of strategic level decision. Is that correct, or am I jumping at the wrong tree here?
No, Paul, you're absolutely right. Your examples that you quoted are in our sweet spot. Those are the kind of decision making that our engine is designed to solve for. It could be in transformation, it could be in marketing, in any line of business. But these are more consequential decisions which will stay with us, which
you may have to justify in future, basically, that sort of thing.
Not only justify in future, but we make such decisions quite often, maybe in different groups, in different teams, in different lines of businesses. So I will digress slightly, but I will bring the point home, which is many a times we feel that the decisions that we are making is very unique and should be treated very bespoke. But I beg to disagree, because what we are trying to bring to judgment and decision making is some sort of standardization, some sort of Six Sigma. What Six Sigma has done to manufacturing, where manufacturing at one point was wild, wild west, anybody would make anything whichever way they wanted, and there was a lot of wastage. And then came Six Sigma and standardized the process. I'm making a case for decision making also to go through a standardized process and capture the rationale, because which vendor should I choose when project ABC gets finished and XYZ comes up? I shouldn't have to rehash the whole discussion of analyzing my vendor base all over again. Chances are, in the previous decisions that were made in previous award of orders and RFIs and RFQs or what have you, a lot of similar discussion has already been made. So why can't we capitalize on all of those early learning and early checks and balances and use that same this time when I have to choose a vendor? So that kind of a concept, Paul.
That makes perfect sense. I think you're probably touching on a really interesting area, which is decision lifecycle management. And yes. I suspect there's probably a much bigger market in areas where there is, for example, healthcare decisions, etc., which can be controversial, but nonetheless, there's certain requirements for openness and huge value considerations as well. So very interesting, but I think you're touching on something which could be even more important.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. It is you bet. It is our hope that we are able to use the decision lifecycle management to also have newer constructs which will start measuring the decision quality in itself. So the previous question that Alan had regarding, no, not Alan, I believe I forgot the name, but where we can tie the consequences to the reason for decision. There could be a decision quality index now, just like you have a consumer index or a financial score of a consumer. We can now make a judgment call on how strong or how weak or how controversial a decision was to fulfill the goals, the outcome that it produced. So I hope we are touching on something relevant, and our motivation in presenting to Jacob and this group here was just to get some sense that we are not barking up the wrong tree, because as entrepreneurs, we get some idea, but only the field can train us and teach us that whether there is a need for this or not. So thus far, we have some utility that we have found. And if there are no other questions, I would turn it over to my colleague and my CTO Gunjan for taking us through a demo.
So Deepak, there are some questions in the chat.
Sure, Gunjan, do you want to take them or help me take any of those?
I'll ask the questions. Maybe you can answer them. You have addressed
Thank you.
Some of them.
Thank you.
So
go ahead.
Rolando asks that I wonder if when recording the version of the rules that ran, that is the rules that decided whether to zig or zag, is it sufficient or necessary to record the version of the rule, decision table, decision requirements, models, etc., etc.? Say before lunch, the decision is zig, and after lunch, the decision is zag. Does that make sense?
Yes,
It's like
very good question. And I should have recognized that this is no different than a source code version control. So decisions always tend to evolve to the point that Paul was saying, where there is a decision lifecycle management. Decisions are not static. They we we zig, we zag, we zig, we zag, and we do X, Y, Z. So when I'm talking about contemporaneous decision capture, it has to be tied to a particular version of the decision, because the 8 fields will change as the version of the decision will change.
Yeah.
What's next, Kunjan?
No, just Carol just replied to Rolando's point about champion challenger systems, and they capture the configuration of each strategy that we are experimenting against and measure outcomes as well as delayed outcomes in order to select the best ones. So she says that this is a well-known pattern.
Yes, thank you for sharing that insight. I believe what you're saying is correct. It is our belief that these kind of things that Carol just shared can make enterprises more autonomous. And what I mean by autonomous is, just like in a source code, you know where the code started and what all changes have happened to it and where does the code stand today. That whole change management, change control should be applicable to strategy also. And we should be able to know where we were in our strategy and decision making 10 days ago, what all changes have happened and where we stand today. So that if somebody leaves or if the company gets bought, any kind of major event, we should be able to reconstruct how we got to where we are today from any number of days. If we know the version of decision at X and the changes happening and the Y today. So that's the whole notion of an autonomous organization, which is able to course correct along the way and deliver the response or deliver the result where you ought it to be delivered by course correcting through this kind of a system. So without much further ado, if I have tackled most of the questions, thank you, Gunjan, then maybe Gunjan can take us through a demo.
Yeah, I would need the permission to share my screen.
So I'm going to stop share now, okay?
So I don't have the permission to share. Maybe.
So Jacob, if you can kindly help
Just
Gunjan.
a second, let me check why you don't have disable camera. Spotlight for everyone. I don't know. Maybe this will work. Spotlight for everyone. Oh, we just can see you, but we don't. Huh. So why you're not registered, right?
Probably he's not registered. I had invited him.
Okay, but it's okay. So everybody can share screen. You sure you cannot click share button on your screen?
Yeah, it says only meeting organizers and presenters can share.
Oh, actually, I thought everybody can share when we set options. Record. How to make you presenter. Let me see. People. Somehow I don't see you among attendees. That's why it's so difficult. And when I click buttons here, don't know. I don't see. How can I change it?
Maybe Gunjan, you give me the link. Let me try, even though I am not used to doing the demo. At least we will share some things, or you can guide me and I can click.
Yeah, sure, Deepak. I'll share the link. Yeah.
Do you want to share the link here in the?
No, and I'll send you on WhatsApp if that's okay.
Yeah, let me go to WhatsApp.
I can send you invite, Kanjan, so you can
Yeah, why don't you do
join.
that? Let's give Gunjan
But
the full
what
permission.
is email? Put it in chat. What is your email? What is his email? Can you
I'll
put in
put
chat?
it.
Yeah, Gunjan is putting it in the chat.
Yeah. Kanchan.
Any other questions we can answer in the meantime?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I sent you an invite. And you have question, Deepak, in the chat if you can see it.
Yeah, I agree with the observation that the coding analogy that I'm using will require the prompts along with the changes.
And John, you got it? Are you muted? You probably should leave the meeting and join the meeting.
Yeah, I don't have the link. I don't have the email. I have not received the email yet. I'll wait a few moments. I'll join
Okay.
again.
Okay, Deepak, you can answer the question.
I don't see a question. I just see an observation.
There is a question in chat.
Am I in the right place? Can someone please speak up on what is the question?
Okay, I can read it for you. For the analogy with coding, some strong voices in the community are now saying that traditional pull requests may no longer be the best way to review changes, but instead developers should include the prompts that generated the change in order to capture the reasoning behind the change and not only the final change itself.
Yes, I agree. It is another reason why a product like ours will be needed more and more because of the ratification that I was saying, the machine to human. Many a times the machine or AI or prompts are a black box to us, and we don't get into that layer as quantum mosaic. For quantum mosaic, there always have to be a handoff between a human to human or a machine to human. And that boundary is where we work. And even for us to work in that boundary, we would have to see as human, not just the changes, but what prompts were used. So I agree with this observation.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm back. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, go ahead, Gunjan.
Okay. So what like you guys were discussing, and which makes sense, that there are a few points that is the basis of the demo that I'm showing. One is that all the decisions basically have a history of a lineage that is followed, and there is a history of past decisions that influence the decision that you're going to make. That is one. Secondly, whenever a decision happens, a decision originates from a request. Somebody needs something and they initiate a request, and that request leads to a decision. That decision leads to some actions, and that actions lead to an outcome. That is the second point. And thirdly, in future, we want to figure out why we did we are doing something the way we are doing right now. Okay, what led to this? So with that background, this is a pilot that we are working on, and this is our decision. This is a system where we manage, we record, and we help the users take smarter decisions based on their institutional memory, based on their institutional organizational policies, and so on. Everything starts from this chat window, and whenever, so suppose the user of this platform is either an employee who wants to raise a request. It could be a manager who wants to decide whether it needs to be discussed in one of their meetings, management meetings, or they need to sort it out at their level. And it's also the senior management who wants to review all the different decisions and what is the status of the decisions in its different life cycle. Okay, so suppose the case here is that there's a person who his production manager has quit, and he wants to ask, figure out that this has happened, what should I do now? Okay, and what Quantum Mosaic does is it digs into the memory, organizational memory. Based on that, it figures out that, okay, based on what you have done, similar decisions were, or similar questions were raised in the past on so and so dates. And this is what happened. Okay, so in this, they went internal first, and in the other one, they did this. And for everything that it's doing, it is not only proposing, helping you as an assistant who remembers everything that has happened in the organization and remembers for your level of authorization. So if you are a senior manager, you know more. If you are somebody lower in the hierarchy, you have restricted access. But everything across the organization is available to you here. Everything is for each of these conversations that you're having, there is a detailed audit information. There's a detailed, uh, there are details that you can dig into and find out. Okay. It also tells you that, okay, this might be contradicting this, but this is how it was resolved in the past. So that gives you more insights on how to approach the management or your manager with your request. It also tells you that since you are asking this decision is derived or depends on these few decisions up the in the organization. So maybe when you're talking about this discussion, you should also be, touching or reviewing these discussions that happened in the past. And I continue this and I say that I want to do this. So it says that, okay, it knows the organizational chart, it knows the people who belong to different departments, it understands what the role of those people are, and it suggests that, okay, if you're discussing this, loop these people in and keep them in the loop, and they can help you with this decision. So based on this, it helps me create a meeting agenda. Now the flow of decision for this particular use case was that a request becomes a meeting agenda. The meeting agenda needs to be reviewed by the manager, and that, mm, if once it's approved, it becomes part of the meeting. The system listens to the meeting that is happening based online and offline, and it's creating notes, it's deriving the drafts, and then it manages the entire life cycle of the decision that way. Okay, so this is how we handle it. It understands that some points are confidential that you are sharing, so it allows you to mark it as confidential and have a public summary for people who don't have the access, and so on. Once you create a decision, okay, so I mean, before I go, is there any question with what I have shared so far?
You can check Paul's comment about case-based reasoning.
Okay, I'll check that. Okay. case-based reasoning but applied to decisions. So I did not understand this question, Paul.
Yeah, sorry, there wasn't really a question, Gunjan. It's just a commentary. There was a similar technology, mostly used for operational decision making in the 1990s, called case-based reasoning, where you recorded the question and answer from usually operational support cases, things like service management and things like that, with a view to being able to automate the responses as additional cases were known. So it's a similar sort of pattern to what you're doing, but what you're trying to do, I think, is more strategically at the strategic decision level, which probably is why you're getting some pushback from C-level executives who would rather their decisions were not not subject to scrutiny, I would guess. I can quite believe that.
That's exactly the case, Paul. People take discretion as power. And if you take away that discretion, you're curtailing their power and they don't like it.
In some cases, I'm sure you'll find plenty of enlightened areas where that's not the case. But yeah, that's, I wish you good luck with overcoming that.
Thank you.
Okay. You can share your screen, Kanchan.
Yeah. Okay, and the Quantum Mosaic platform has an entire management for all of these things. So every time a manager comes into the system and wants to look at, what, so this is so. In this specific pilot, they had a weekly meeting, and they wanted all the agenda items to be reviewed before the meeting started. One of the problems that was there in their meeting was that people used to come to the meeting without any background of what the other people are requesting. And then there used to be a lot of debate on the points, ad hoc debates within the meeting. And most of their debates were not data driven, or discussions were not data driven or policy driven. They were mostly based on personal experience and gut feel. And they wanted to avoid that, and they wanted to make the entire discussion data driven. They wanted to preemptively inform all the participants of that meeting that these are the 10 things that we are going to discuss. This is the reasoning for why we want this specific outcome from this decision, and provide supporting data and policy history to all the participants, so that when they come to the meeting, they are not shocked by the different kinds of discussions that are happening. They have a background knowledge of what has happened. Every point that is being discussed is grounded in either an organizational data or organizational memory, or one of the policies that is enforced in that organization. And this dashboard and the whole system pilot is designed. I'll not go into the specifics of this, but the purpose of all of this was to empower each of them before taking a decision and before arguing or before raising a point. Second one was to find out the decisions or the discussions that have been lingering on for months. They have been discussing something and then they just defer it to the next meeting and they don't come to an outcome. The third thing that this helped them with was it helped them track the decision life cycle. So once a request becomes a meeting agenda and it gets discussed, then based on that, it gets handed over downstream to the managers. Managers take their own decisions that become the children of this decision, and that whole life cycle can be monitored, and they can see where the decision starts drifting from the expected outcome at a top level that was decided. So this is to prevent and to avoid a lot of data entry and handling. The system has the ability to automatically record the meetings and extract the minutes, etc., and extract all the different outcomes that all the different fields that it needs to track. It also it helps you see the different decision history how the decision changed, and it creates a decision database, so as to say. So if tomorrow this gentleman Casey is not there in the organization, everything that he decided and why he decided that and what led to him to decide that is all recorded, and it is available to all the people with the right access within the organization. I'll be happy to dive deeper into specifics if you have any questions.
Thank you, Gunjan. So I have a question to the audience, if that is okay, Jacob.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So since we are new to DecisionCAMP and our goal is to have a viable product, any feedback, good, bad, ugly, we are on an experimentation basis trying to hear from the market. So we will be happy to take any feedback you have. You won't hurt our feelings.
Anybody wants to provide feedback? I can tell about my first impression. So we here at the DecisionCAMP and in the decision management community in general focus mainly on operational repetitive decisions. And as Paul mentioned, life cycle of decisions. So it's not just extremely important. So we're concentrating frequently not only about decision made at this particular point of time, but how it affects future decisions. So life cycle always is in consideration for operational decisions, but it looks you're more concentrating on strategic decisions, and that's the value what you want to provide, keeping the memory of decision making. And if you want to stay closer, I think I would recommend you to, as a pilot, consider another situation. Maybe you're working on pilot. If you look on the recently published book, The Decision Factory, it's about supply chain decision making in real time. And people all the time in this book, they describe meetings of decision makers. Everybody express their opinion, and they come up with decision what should they modify the decision model, what should be done next. And if you memorized these dialogues, and they just perfectly described in the book. Probably it could be, even if you take only a few situations they described, it could be a good demonstration of value what you're trying to provide. And I will put the pointer to the book on the chat, so you would be able to do it. Let me just, okay. But in general, this is very interesting and I would say challenging, and not what we usually considered before, but it could be a lot of value, lost value, I would say.
Thank you
Okay.
for sharing the book.
Paul, you want to make final comment?
Well, I was just going to say that the road in decision management is paved with vendors who have tried to do supporting systems. I'm thinking about tools like the SBVR support systems and things like that, which haven't really been able to get traction in the market because IT departments are willing to pay for operational information systems and systems that execute, but the metadata, the supporting science of supporting decision making is a hard sell. That's not notwithstanding the successes of companies like FICO, IBM, Spark and Logic, etc., who have complete packages around decision management. But the point is that they're primarily, I think, selling the execution of decisions, not the analysis, if you like, of decisions. So I wish you luck. It sounds like a really interesting area. But as I said, I would imagine there's going to be. I would expect you'd have to focus on particular vertical markets like healthcare or government or something like that to try and get traction. And I wish you luck.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you, our presenters. Thank you, everybody, and we will move forward.